Hi, this is Dan Sullivan. I'd like to welcome you to the Multiplier Mindset Podcast. Beth's father has been in Strategic Coach for 30 years. He joined when Beth was 10 years old. She said she immediately noticed a difference in the quality of home life and the quality of personal life the moment that her father, Pat Keating, came into the program. And Pat, I just saw 2 days ago at one of my workshops. The other thing I want to say is that when Beth was married, I went to the wedding. It was at the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Chicago. And the biggest thing I remember about it was how big the families that she and her husband came from, because I think the number was they had 85 first cousins at the Four Seasons. One of our great clients, Ken Arlen, had his orchestra there, and, it was really great. And then Beth is, of course, in the program, and she's got her own business, and she has 3 children. And there's something that she did, which is extraordinarily admirable when she tells her story about the COVID year. And it's something that I really take a lot of pride in, because coach clients really approach the COVID differently from the general population. And that is, they used it as an opportunity to actually create a new kind of value in other people's lives some of them were very pessimistic. Some of them were very depressed. Some of them, were looking at the future and seeing only bleakness ahead. And they got them to switch their mindsets so that they kept measuring their progress backwards, which means in coach terms that you're in the gain. You're not measuring yourself against some unrealistic ideal, which is in the gap.
I am Beth Kraszewski, the president of Purposeful Wealth Advisors. We are a full-service wealth management firm, and I've been in Strategic Coach for 7 years. So I feel like I was born with the entrepreneur gene. From an early age, I was wanting to invent things, create things. I probably wasn't always the best at being managed. I think that's probably a symptom of us entrepreneurs. So I ended up getting into the wealth management space. I come from a family, father who is also a wealth manager, entrepreneur, and that had a big impact on how I decided to get into the industry. So I was driving to my own personal strategic coach session, which was 7 years ago. And as I was driving to coach that day, coincidentally, I was just thinking as I was driving, at the time we had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 2-month-old when I was driving. So life was busy with kids. And I started to think okay, I am not going to get everything right with parenting these kids, but there has to be some big things along the way that I can just focus on certain big items. So I started to think about my own parents and what were some of those big things that they had done for us to raise 3 wonderful children. And when I think about it, it's actually my dad's participation in Strategic Coach. He joined Coach when I was probably around 10 or 12 years old. And so I have a dramatic memory of what life was like before Dad was in Coach and after Dad started Coach. So we were raised with, these mindsets, this entrepreneurial mindset. The Strategic Coach is so great to create. Always knowing that our futures are bigger than our past. Always knowing that we didn't necessarily have to work harder. It was more about figuring out where our talents were and focusing on our strengths, building teams and relationships around us to help support our strengths, and in return, supporting our team members' strengths. So I look at that mindset and that confidence that built in us kids, and that was so important. So I have one very obvious memory of what my dad was like before and after Coach. And we went on our summer vacation to Colorado. And for the first time, Dad did not call back to the office while we were on vacation. He was so proud of himself, and we were so glad that he wasn't distracted, because what would always inevitably happen is he would call the office, something wasn't going well, and so what he had expected to be a 30-minute call really turned into an entire day, and then he was upset the rest of vacation. So it was the first time, and I would say overall, seeing his presence change in our family, being able to be present with us and not always being distracted by work. I also saw that his perspective changed as far as it wasn't only about making more money and growing things bigger, but it really became about what is the bigger purpose of this entrepreneurial company that he was running. So in not the most distant past, a year ago, a little over a year ago, was going through everything when COVID hit in 2020. And with the way that our compensation works, COVID hit, stock market is down, and our revenue was down significantly in a matter of weeks. It was a major hit. And there would have been this tendency, and trust me, there were days that there was, where it just felt like I wanted to lay down on the floor, hide in a cave. But the strategic coach mindset helps to take those events that can be so challenging. And when I say so challenging, like earth shattering, and say, wait a second, I don't have to see this as a challenge. I can see this as an opportunity. And I can focus on what can I do to serve others right now, as opposed to purely focusing on myself. What opportunities can come out of this time? I think most of us can look back historically and see, whether it's in the history of our country, in the history of other companies, that times of challenge can actually prove to be times of opportunity. And strategic coach helps us as entrepreneurs, not only helps us, it's like the lifeblood to keeping our mindset in that space to be able to create opportunity in times of the greatest challenges. The biggest opportunity I learned is that we jumped into a mode of trying to fix things. And what was true during that time, looking back on it, was that a lot of that was out of our control. But what I found was when I focused on, because a lot of our clients, they were really, really, really struggling during that time. I found that when I focused on serving them, when I focused on listening to them, reaching out to them, that made a dramatic, dramatic change. The other thing that came during COVID, which some of us experienced, is that we took our family and went out to Colorado for an entire month in June. And I don't think that I would have realized that it was possible before to balance this amazing family experience, but also to be able to work at the same time. And I found that during that time out of the office, even though I was working, I was extremely creative. And so during that challenging time, realizing of other ways that I could approach work, as strategic coach, we focus on measuring our progress from where we've come from, as opposed to, measuring ourselves to other people or measuring ourselves to where we think we should be. And so quite often our clients are in that same mindset of just struggling and seeing everything that's negative. And so with our clients, we focus on where have they come from? What are the achievements that they have made? And focusing and saying, to be able to focus on those and acknowledge those items can create so much momentum and power going forward to just attract more good things into our lives. So over the last year, I've found a lot more balance with my freedom of time and balancing with our family. So I've realized that I don't have to be in the office in Chicago to be able to make great impact. It's given us the opportunity to realize, what should we be saying no to as a family? And what should I be saying no to professionally, to be able to really create more balance and more connection with not only my family, but greater growth in my company. Quite often we think that we have to say yes to a lot of things to create growth. And coach has taught me that that's actually the opposite. It's so important to understand the things that we need to say no to so we can focus on the yeses that make us such a big difference. First of all, pain is a really good teacher, right? So we say yes so many times to things that, I realized that was creating a problem. So strategic coach helped me to develop some filters to focus on, where is it that I'm wanting to go? Where is it that we're wanting to go as a family? Where is it that we're going as a company? And to be able to develop filters on the items that I need to be saying yes to. And the items, really the more important thing is the items that I need to be saying no to. Because again, I think the tendency is to just say yes, 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 grab every opportunity that's coming along the way. The world will tell us that we have to work harder. We have to work harder. But what Strategic Coach tells us is to figure out what our unique ability is and then focus on our unique ability and not necessarily work harder. The world will tell us that we need to earn our time off, that we have to work hard, and then we earn time away from work. Whereas Strategic Coach teaches us that that time away from work is key rejuvenation that we need in order to be optimal, to be able to have our greater purpose. The world will tell us that we should professionally just get on this plan to be able to retire someday. And in Coach, retire is considered a 4-letter word. And it's not because we should just work ourselves, to death for our entire lives. It's about really fine-tuning what is it that brings us energy? Where is it that our talents are best utilized, and focusing on that? And if we do that, why would we ever want to stop working? So to me, it's all about the mindset. There's so much that we don't have control over, but what we do have control over is our mindset. And it's so powerful to create the results that we want in all aspects of our life. At the age of probably 35, I was already making over $1 million at the same time of having a baby, 2-year-old and 4-year-old, having a strong marriage. There's tangible results with the revenue that I've seen, but to me, the greatest payoff, I'm not willing to take the revenue if everything else is screwed up in my life. And so finding that balance where I can make a ton of money and also that the things and the relationships that are so important to me, that those are flourishing as well.
Beth, when you meet her, is just one of the most positive people you've ever met. So the combination of Beth just being a very, very positive person and having 30 years of Strategic Coach history and being her own entrepreneur and having her own family, and then just flipping a bad year into a good year, I take an enormous amount of pleasure and pride that was part of our coaching relationship, that she told her story from inside the experience of being in the coach and mastering coach mindsets.